Let's do another one of those videos where I just talk. I was asked by one of my Instagram friends this interesting question. How do you keep the pen hobby interesting for yourself? A simple question, complicated answer. First of all, get a little closer. There you are. The interesting thing about that question is that I think that a lot of us, if you are in the fountain pen hobby for a while, struggle with at some point or another. Because when you start out in this hobby, and that really applies to any hobby, everything is exciting and everything is shiny, you want this and you want to try that and all that. But at some point you kind of settle down and it becomes a little bit more complicated to really stay interested and involved in this hobby. So I gave this a little bit of thought and I came up with a couple of thoughts, I suppose. The first thing I wanted to do was talk a little bit about myself. The reason for that being that I can give you a little bit of background of how this happened to me and how being engaged in this hobby has had some ups and downs when it comes to staying engaged. I'm not going to be talking about being on YouTube, I'm just talking about me as a pen user. Okay? I've told this story before, so I'll keep it really, really brief. My grandfather passed away at the end of 2010. He left me a Parker fountain pen ballpoint set. I was interested in it. I'd been using fountain pens for years and years before that, but I didn't really know anything about them. I just used them. When he gave me those pens, I got more interested in the background of pens. I did some online searching. I found Brian Goulet's videos, extremely educational and helpful. I learned a lot online from Brian's videos, from other people's work, websites, etc. And at that point, I was interested in buying a very nice pen with a gold nib and with a converter, and I didn't even know that there was a difference between gold nibs and steel nibs. I didn't know what a converter was. So, I mean, I learned a lot, and I loved it. And here's the thing, at that point, it's very easy to be pulled into a hobby and to really be engaged and try out all sorts of things. And at that point, everything's fun. Different inks and maybe different nibs or whatever, but you have all these options. But at some point, you can get a little bored. Now, here's the thing that I'm a scientist, and I like to think about these types of phenomena in scientific terms. So one of the interesting phenomena in this case, I think, is the trade-off between exploration and exploitation. All right, this is something that's actually part of my dissertation. Very simple example. Imagine you are a squirrel and you have to look for food every day. Then you have two options. One option is you go to an area where you know, you've been there before, you know that typically is enough food, or some food at least. We call that exploitation. You go to the same area that you know, and you know what there will be, or what will be there, right? You can draw an analog to our world, people world. If you go to a restaurant, what are you going to do? You've been there before. Are you going to try something new? Or are you going to order the one item on the menu that you know is going to be really good? If you do that, then you are again exploiting. But there's another thing you can do. Back to the squirrel. The squirrel can also think to itself, I should explore a different area. Because maybe there is another area where there is more food, whatever, better resources. But it's a trade-off, because if it goes there, it may miss out on its regular food in the regular spot where it goes to, or it may find that in this new area there's no food at all, and it will have wasted its energy going there and exploring. So now it's not exploiting, it is exploring. All right? And to use the restaurant analogy again, if you do not pick what you always pick, but you look at the menu and you select something else, you run the risk of picking something that's actually not as good as your regular dish, but it may also be even better, right? And then you are exploring. Now when it comes to a hobby like fountain pens, using fountain pens, I think what happens is that a lot of people, when they enter this hobby, I definitely did, and I hear from a lot of people around me that they went through the same thing. When you get into it, you start to really explore. Sorry, just sip of tea. And exploring is fun, right? For me, I remember that I wanted to try out several nib types. What's the difference between fine, medium, broad? Different filling systems. Cartridge converter, piston filler, vacuumatic filler, maybe some vintage filling systems. So you have all that to explore, and not just that, you have all kinds of pen brands to explore. Obviously, I think most of us do not run to the shop and buy 50 pens in 2 weeks, but over time you get to explore all these things, even if it's just using other people's pens, pen meets, etc. And if it's not that, there's also all the inks. Maybe you want to try a blue or a red or green, etc. You have all those things, and not just the colors, but you have all the brands to explore. So at first you are really exploring, and it's a lot of fun. But then at some point, and this is something that happens to a lot of people too, and this is exactly what the person on Instagram said, I kind of have what I want now, and I'm paraphrasing it, I cannot necessarily afford to buy what I would like to sample. So how do I stay interested in this hobby? Well, this is where I think you have a couple of options. The simplest option is to go from your exploration to your exploitation phase. So instead of sampling or desiring to sample all kinds of new pens and different nibs and filling systems or whatever, enjoy what you have. Really think of what you have and then see what happens. In my case, I had a lot of pens and then I sold a lot of pens. And now I have a couple of pens, but those pens I exploit the hell out of because I use them all the time, because I love each and every one of them. So now you're exploiting. Now, for me, the joy in fountain pens is no longer to look for the new one or look for this. I see all kinds of people on Instagram. Oh, look at my new this thing. Oh, new TWSBI coming out. Oh, let's all buy the new TWSBI. I'm not like that anymore. I'm not judging it. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. But you shift your approach from I want this and I want that and this is shiny and that's nice and I want this and that. You simply go to I have these. Well, I don't know what I have. 15, 16, 17 pens maybe, but that's it. And those I use. And I may occasionally sample a new ink, but that doesn't really interest me anymore either, because I know what inks I like. I like the Mont Blanc inks, I like the Waterman inks. It's all very boring, but they work fine. I never have issues with them, and that's good. I don't need fancy exotic inks. Again, I'm not judging it, I'm just saying that that applies to me. So for me, the shift from exploration to exploitation has been very positive. A friend of mine in the Toronto pen scene actually recently told me that he's selling off all his pens and he's only focusing on Parker Dual folds now. That's another very good example of someone who has gone from exploring and owning all sorts of pens to now exploiting and saying, you know what, this is the one model I like, this is what I will collect. And then you can explore within your exploitation again, because now he has. I mean, I don't know what he thinks, but I mean, I'm trying to project my thoughts onto that. Now he has another opportunity to start exploring again, because he can look for the finishes that are not represented in his collection of Parker Dual folds, and that's another way to stay interested. You exploit, but within that exploitation, you can explore more too. For example, let's say that you have found that for you, the TWSBI Eco is the absolutely perfect pen. That is the one pen that you love. Then get rid of your other pens, keep the Eco, and maybe buy more Ecos. Buy them in different finishes, buy them with every possible nib option, whatever. Another example of exploring within exploitation. Now, having said all of this, and I hope I haven't bored you with this kind of reasoning, but I really think this is the trick. A satisfied mind, to quote Johnny Cash, right? You have to enjoy what you have, and that's what keeps it interesting. There are other things you can do, and some of us are more fortunate in that regard than others, but other things you can do to stay interested in this hobby is do things. Go out and meet people. Go to a pen show. If there is a local pen club in your area, go there. If there's no local pen club, found a pen club. Is that English? Found, to found something? The founding fathers. Sorry, sometimes I get confused. Create it, set it up, make it happen. Put something on Facebook, put it on whatever, Instagram. Usually people will respond. Put it on a big forum where there's a lot of visitors, like say the Fountain Pen Network, FP Geeks, whatever. Say, I am in this area, I want to set up a pen meet every month, whatever, who's interested? I guarantee you there will be people. You will be surprised how many pen lovers there are in your area. Maybe you have to drive for an hour, but often there are people, many more than you think, right? Another way to stay interested, because that also, again, that allows you to explore more, because you get to see other people, you get to see their pens, maybe their inks, whatever, but you can interact in that way. And that can also help you to really stay interested in this hobby, because it's a great hobby. But it's like being in a relationship. If you're in there long enough, things may get a little boring. So you have to make sure that things stay interesting. And you do that by challenging yourself, challenging your partner. In this case, you can't really challenge your pens, but you can do other stuff, right? As I just explained. Really look into these kinds of options. And that, I think, will keep this hobby, or any hobby really, whether it's collecting stamps, Star Wars action figures, God knows what you can do. That's a way you can keep things interesting for yourself. Okay. Dr. Brown signing off. I hope this was useful, and I'm glad to see you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.